What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another segment of HR Heretics. Today, we're going to introduce something a little bit different and new. So our listeners, Kelly, have been telling us for the last 5 months, as it relates to AI, they're kind of having this emperor has no clothes moment to where they know it's a big deal. They know they need to be doing something about it, but most of them actually haven't done much outside of using ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever your favorite LLM is. So we've decided to bring on Siadhal Magos, who is the CEO of Metaview, who is our resident AI expert for an AI corner every month. And so, Siadhal, welcome to the show. We're super excited to be doing this with you.
Yeah, pumped to be doing it too. Thanks for having me again.
All right. So today we want to talk about 11x, and the website is 11x.ai. So they raised, I think it was $75 million over 2 separate rounds over 2 months, a Series A and a Series B. And what they claim to do, they have 2 products. One is called Alice, the other is called Mike, and they're essentially SDRs that are supposed to remove humans from the process. These are AI agents that can run by themselves without humans. That's the story that they're telling. That's why they've raised so much money. So, Siadhal, obviously, I think this is big for a couple of reasons. What's your take on this thing?
So take on this, I think the reason this is a big deal, 11x specifically for sure, because they've really generated a lot of buzz recently, but there's other companies as well that sort of striking at the heart. Really, they're striking at the heart of the future of work, right? The reason that VCs are getting so excited about this is because historically, whenever an investor has invested in a software company, that company has gone into that VC and said, this is how big the software market is for this problem that I'm solving. And what VCs are getting very excited about is the idea that actually that TAM, that total addressable market, is no longer the software spend of a company, but you're moving it to the labor spend. Because companies like 11x are coming in and saying, we are going to make it so that companies of the future don't need to hire these people. They'll just buy our software instead. And so that's really the reason companies like this are such a, I think maybe a lightning rod for a lot of discussion and healthy discussion about, hey, is this the way the future is going to go? Is it some derivative of this? Or is it very close to this? Is it nothing like this? But for sure, the bet is one, frankly, worth making. If you're a risk-seeking VC, you want to plow a lot of money into companies like these because they are addressing a much bigger bucket of spend than a traditional software company. So just to put that in sort of some form of scale, I think that the sort of any company will be spending around 70 to 80% of all of their costs on human capital. And some single digit percentage is going to go on software. So you're targeting a market that has 11x that is orders of magnitude larger than a traditional software company.
It's a perfect way to frame it, Siadhal, because I hadn't thought about it as labor is such a bigger pie, right? I always have thought about software as, oh, it's helping us become more efficient.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this is, but on steroids.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, really, in reality, I think these things are very blurred because I think a lot of people, as they grow a team, for example, they hire certain people who, frankly, they think of as order takers. I'm going to spend this money to get this person in the company because they're really good at doing the exact thing that I tell them to do. And that is, in many cases over time, there are some software that we've developed even pre-AI that sort of did the same thing and maybe at a slower pace did displace some of that labor as well. But I think now it's really it's literally the pitch of these companies. 11x, just taking some things from their website, they talk about the fact that they sell work getting done as opposed to software. So just to take from their manifesto, we don't build software, we build digital workers. We don't sell tools, we deliver outcomes. We're turning code into labor. So it's just, I think in reality, I think it's part of the same spectrum we've always been on, actually. I just think it's, we're rapidly accelerating to the other end of it where you're so close to things that, especially in 11x's case where they literally personify their product. They have 2 products, one called Mike, one called Alice. I think Alice is an SDR and Mike is, I can't remember the exact titles, but essentially both some form of SDR type role, who of course for any scaling company, you hire in the bucket loads to scale. And this is a very direct competitor for those human beings who are going to be seeking those jobs.
Yeah. Kelly, we talked about Lattice last year. So remember when Lattice had that huge brouhaha to where they were like, oh, we're going to put these AI people on the org chart.
Yeah.
And people freaked the fuck out about that. Like, I remember like the LinkedIn comments were like, I think they got into like the thousands of like why this is such a bad idea. Like people had such a visceral reaction.
Yes.
What do you think about this?
Oh my gosh. So Siadhal, to your earlier point first, like I think independent of AI, we're gonna record a holiday kind of end of the year thing soon. But that's a trend that I'm seeing is no one's talking about software anymore. No one's talking about platforms or selling software. They're selling value. Like they're selling a service. They're selling completion of something. And a lot of people are moving their pricing model to this.
Yeah.
Where you're only paying for the service or the value you get out of it. So I think that's kind of a new era, no matter what you're talking about, which I think is good. Oh boy, this AI thing. Like, I think that we are quickly moving from what we saw like a year ago, where it was like you said, Nolan, at dinner, everyone's talking about AI, or every board, and every company was like, what are we doing with AI? I don't give a shit what you put on there. Put something on there. Like, we need AI strategy. But it wasn't really like real. And I'm generalizing this because some people made it real, but it wasn't really like real. It was like, yeah, we can do. I think we are now seeing the actuality of where the rubber is hitting the road on some of this stuff. And I think it's scaring a lot of people because the promises of this won't take jobs. I mean, you can't make that promise. Like, who's saying that? Like the creators of AI company, like we can't keep that promise. So we'll get to that in a while. But looking at 11x.ai, and I bet a lot of people haven't even looked at this site. That's number one.
Yeah.
Like,
and they're doing 10 million in revenue, by the way. According to them, they're doing 10 million in revenue already.
And so you look at it and you're like, oh, shit, this is real. And I think we are at the very early stages of this. And you look at some of the limitations, totally. Like Alice, Mike, they're lacking in the deep aspects of complexity, maybe of judgment, of personalization, of having kind of natural human conversations where you can pivot and kind of change your approach based on the person. Sure, they can't do that. They will be able to do that.
Yep.
So I actually have to be honest, I don't know how I feel about it yet.
Yep. So, okay. So Kelly, I've been saying this for a little while now that I think AI will generally be very positive for the world, like end state. Yes. But I think we're going to go through this moment of displacement.
Yes.
And I think we're on the precipice of getting to that moment. So last week, finally, Sam Altman, who's the co-founder of OpenAI, said that he does believe people will lose jobs to AI. And then he very quickly goes on to say, well, they're going to get better jobs. I actually disagree with Sam. Like, I don't think those people who are currently going to get displaced by AI today are going to end up with better jobs. I think end state, humans will have better jobs because we will have adapted as a species to this new technology, which is going to be pervasive in everything that we do. So, Sal, my question to you is, when you look at organizations today, what are the roles that you think like AI is coming to today?
I guess it's the obvious answer is anything that's heavily scripted or playbooked is the first in line. And I think obviously in many ways, that's almost what, the first generation of SaaS did for us, is that actually did automate some of the things that were totally sort of deterministically predictable about what to do next. That's really what software did for you. It automated a lot of those workflows. And maybe we don't think of it as automation so much nowadays, similar to like the fact we don't think an elevator is an automated elevator because there's not a human in it anymore, but there used to be. So that is automated. We just don't think of it because it's, we grew up around it, I guess. So I think now you're sort of moving into that next layer, which is, I guess the decision tree is somewhat more complex. Maybe you haven't actually literally coded out every single interaction for let's say an SDR to have when they manage to get on the phone with a prospect. But there's this sort of general direction that you can set. And frankly, you've already accepted some lossiness in there, i.e. you are hiring people with not actually a great understanding of which one of them was doing a great job anyway. And many of them probably weren't following the playbook the way you wanted them to. And so that's if you have a really smart group of product thinkers and engineers targeting that problem to try and create a product that can do that thing, like my money would be on that they could figure that out. And then maybe to give the other side of this,
Exactly.
or sort of round it out, we internally at Metaview for building our product, we use primarily we use two different AI coding platforms. One is called Cursor, and Cursor is very much the co-pilot model. I'm the engineer, I'm in my development environment, and it types ahead for me if it knows what I'm trying to do. It makes suggestions for me what I can change in the code that I'm writing. But then literally as of last week, which I'd say this is another really good example for people to check out, a tool called Devin went on general availability. And this is essentially something that you give a task to. Build this page on a website, fix this bug for me. It's not assisting you writing the code. It is just going and doing the task. And then you as the engineer, you get a ping saying, hey, this is ready for you now. Do you want to check it out? And so we're leveraging both, to be clear. Like, it's not actually for us an either or. It's not like, okay, cool, now, fire the engineers. We've got Devin. And frankly, if you go to 11x's website, they've got a ton of jobs. They're hiring a ton. That's what they're going to spend this money on. So I do think it's probably not as fast as people think in many ways as well. My gut, and I don't know the 11x people, to be clear, my gut would be they're focusing on some of the most simple SDR type work. And I think there's like levels of sophistication to work like that as well. But yeah, I think anything that essentially you have someone who's heavily delegating, who's really the sort of the DRI for some other person's output. I think those people who are just sort of doing the work that someone has been delegated to them in many walks of life, they're the folks who are going to, feel pressure, certainly for many of their tasks to be replaced. So if you think about a job as a conglomeration of tasks, a lot of tasks are going to be automated away or done to more effectively than AI. And if you look at your role and think, well, there's a bunch of these that I can see, I have line of sight on these not being super differentiated, then yeah, I guess those roles.
The thing that isn't really different, because I feel like we tend to make it this big new, sometimes scary, different thing. But if you think about it, like, we've been trying to simplify and automate through technology what I like to call like the non-exempt type role processes for 20 years, like since I've been in tech, right? And it feels similar to that, just better and faster. So it feels like that kind of evolution of those non-exempt roles and trying to get more value add with resources and time. It's just an accelerated way of doing that, which I think is a good thing. And, back what I said, I don't know how I feel. It really doesn't matter, does it? Because
it doesn't.
It is the new world of working. And that's like the main message for everyone is it doesn't matter. You can't run away and hide from this unless you want to move somewhere else or just be done with the whole thing, right? Like that's possible. Maybe not though, because like farming, like it's all going to come. However, it doesn't matter. You got to figure out like what that means, how it works. And I think that the headline for me is that people that work mostly with their hands are going to have to start architecting more with their brains, because these are going to be the hands. And that's a different type of job. And there could be more jobs or different jobs or better jobs. It will just depend. But the best way you can kind of jump into this, I think, is to prepare for using your head more than your hands.
Yeah. I think there's a big chunk of truth to that, but I also think that could be misinterpreted, because the whole one of the big thing that's changed in the last couple of years is we've realized a lot of these things that we thought were, creative human endeavors or the results of human intellect that were happening in our brains, frankly, are the things that are being automated. Like, you have these LLMs now, they can control your browser, which means they have an interface into the digital world the same way we do, and therefore they can do all the things we do via a machine. So that's what I've just like almost, I don't want to say warn people about, but just I don't think I wouldn't like to overly focus on people who do things with their hands, frankly, because I think in many cases, some of the more sort of almost artisanal things that folks do with their hands, actually those may be really strong places to be. But equally, I do agree with the word you used there, Kelly, around architecture. I think that I don't want to sort of put a really sort of out there predict, and I'm not talking 20 years out, but I'm talking like maybe over the next 5 years, I see us moving to a world where, folks that are working in sales, recruiting, HR, any role within these organizations, engineers, whatever, their job becomes like significantly more about verifying, evaluating, maybe weighting certain things. Like, when we're using Devon internally for building out Metaview, maybe there's certain ways that we want to weight that engineers, this AI engineer's behavior that suits our culture, the product that we like to build, the things we care about, the fact we care about getting to market fast, or we care about other things within our code base. And I think that would be the same across the board, whether it's recruiting, HR, sales, in the case of AI. I think you'll have these people who are responsible for designing that machine. Now, I don't think the number of people will probably be quite as many as the people who are in the machine to start with. But I do think that the alpha is there. The companies, imagine a fast forward to the future, we have, all this crazy super intelligence at our fingertips that can, call someone, email them, things they can do right now. Every organization on the planet has access to those things. You're still going to have people in that company thinking, how do we beat those folks next door? And one of the tools at their disposal, well, if we get the right people to sort of change the way we orient that system, or change some of the weights and biases within that system, then we have a chance of beating them. So I do think there'll be a lot of capital still put into getting people to weight, evaluate, verify what these systems are doing.
Hey everyone, we'll be right back in a moment after a word from our sponsors.
I must admit, I used to believe that AI didn't actually exist in recruiting or HR. That is until my friend Heather Doche, who leads talent at Signalfire, told me to check out Metaview. I got into the product and was like, wow, AI actually does exist in recruiting, and this product is sick. Metaview is the world's #1 AI scribe built specifically for recruiting. Their AI records and transcribes hiring conversations, like intakes, interviews, and debriefs, then provides perfectly summarized notes of everything that was discussed. I've seen firsthand how tough it can be to extract consistently high-quality data from candidate conversations. I've been in debriefs where interviewers told us about their feelings instead of what actually happened in the interview. And I've seen VPs and CEOs block hires because they didn't learn anything from skeleton scorecards. Metaview changes everything. With perfect notes from every conversation, your people can focus on creating a human connection with candidates, and they can save time on the busy work of cleaning up notes after every interview. But it's so much more than just a time saver, because perfect notes means perfect data. For every candidate and every pipeline, hiring teams can make confident, informed decisions, and talent leaders can finally take control of the interview process. Metaview covers all your compliance needs, works with all your existing tools, and takes less than 3 minutes to set up. Join talent leaders at organizations like Brex, Deal, HelloFresh, and Quora, and check out Metaview. Head over to metaview.ai/heretics to talk to one of Metaview's product experts. Tell them that me and Kelly sent you. Or you could just go to their website and get started for free. You'll be up, running, and AI-enabled in minutes. When I was at Carta, so Henry, who's the CEO of Carta, wrote this blog post. It's a seminal blog post. It's called How to Hire. And in that post, he had a line that was very controversial. And that line was, every hire we make is an admission of failure. And, one of my big learnings since the venture, specifically in venture, but many in tech in general, went through this downturn beginning in 2022, is that is more true than ever. And when companies are when investors care more about profitability than they do about growth, I think they care about both now, but profitability now really matters. Sal, to your earlier point, 70 to 80% of a company's spend, its OpEx, is on people. And so if you're a founder, if you're thinking about starting a company, the biggest place to go look where companies want to spend less is on humans. Now, I'll say that, and I'll say that's what's coming. That's where I think the puck is going. On the other side, one of the things that Peter Thiel said this recently around, everyone thought when AI was first going to come out, what it was really going to come for was for more human to human roles. And in fact, it came for the math people first. It actually came for designers in some instances with DALL-E 3. DALL-E is oh my God, I don't even, I can actually spin up DALL-E first and then take it to a designer. You're not getting rid of that entirely, but it came for the areas they didn't expect first. And so, Sal, when I actually think about who might be safest, you said the word artisanal, and I think about these artisanal roles specifically in like HR and recruiting. There's so much nuance in what happens in these roles when you're dealing with real humans versus like in customer support, for example. It basically becomes a decision tree of like, customer has this problem. Did they try this thing? Yes or no? Yes, they did. Then we do this thing. It's just a decision tree. That is not what HR and recruit. There's so much nuance. Do you agree with that? I mean, you're building Metaview, right? So like, obviously, like you're working with recruiters all day long. Like my view is like, that's going to be probably the last to go.
Yeah, I think I just wouldn't agree with the phrase last to go. I don't think it's going to be, I think in some cases there'll be this before and after, but in many cases, and maybe in all cases, almost like 10 years forward looking back, but I don't think many job roles are going to have this. There will be some, to be clear, but I don't think it's going to be the majority of job roles where it's like, oh, boom, that thing no longer matters or exists anymore. But anyway, in the case of recruiting specifically, we're seeing it already, and I believe it's going to continue, that AI is going to be a great thing for recruiting. If you think about what the best recruiters are best at, it usually is the human-to-human interactions, the persuasiveness, the curiosity, maybe the sort of, even frankly, like the logging this sort of like little clue for later that I might want to lean on that, later in the off, like these sorts of things. And I'm not saying these things are beyond the pale for AI at all, but what I am saying is that at the very least, you've got another human being on the other end and their preferences matter. And in a scenario when they're thinking about, well, what company am I going to go and join? For now, if I was on the lookout for a job, one of the things I would really care about is the quality of my future teammates. For example, I want to get to know who they are. Because actually, if they go and join another company in future, I want to be surrounded by great people that maybe they go on to do great things and I follow them in my career. And, I just care about talent density and all those things. So I think there's also in this market where if you want to win the very best talent, putting them through some sort of totally automated recruitment cycle, I just don't think the ROI is there. I think you're going to win the best people, which is all that matters really in recruiting. You're going to want to put amazing people in front of them, maybe really affect how they think in a way that we find socially acceptable, which is persuading human to human as opposed to leveraging a super intelligent AI to try and convince them of something. And yeah, I think recruiting is in a really good spot from that perspective, especially. But especially given we're talking about X.AI, I would say the same for salespeople. I do think there's a lot of that in sales as well. And so I think it probably behooves people in recruiting to also think about, okay, we can agree that almost like as a rule, AI is going to mean we can focus more on the really human aspects of recruiting. And frankly, as recruiters, we like that. But let's not think that applies to everything we've been doing, actually. Because if you speak to a recruiter, an IC recruiter, they will tell you that something between like 50 to 70% of their work is not that stuff. That is the problem. They've been spending all this time on things that are not their zone of genius at all. And actually, they might be amazing once they're on the phone with candidates. They might be amazing at, understanding this clue means this thing over here. And if I can influence this hiring manager to think differently about this role, because I know more about the market than they do, then we can actually get this role closed quicker. Like that's where great recruiters do great work, not the scrolling endlessly through LinkedIn or whatever else to find candidates and send the same message over and over again and, play the numbers game and hope some people reply. Yeah. That's obviously not going to stand the test of time.
Yeah. And you said something I just want to underline, like, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, those in the job do. It is still a significant part of the job.
Yeah.
Like it is still sucking so much time from folks, that administrative stuff. I couldn't agree more. And I don't know. I mean, whenever I get a little scared or panicky about this taking over, I think of like the past, like there were jobs and careers 20 years ago, right? People developing photos or travel agents, or I mean they're all across the board. And I actually don't think that we even know how to wrap our heads around the new stuff that's going to come from this. Like maybe some people know so much that they know kind of what new work will be out there. I do think, that this is another rev of kind of those examples. And I don't even know how to think about it. But I bet you there's a shit ton of new work and new jobs that are going to be out there that we can't even think about yet.
Yeah. The leaders of these big AI companies, they might make predictions like the one you mentioned, Nolan. Like, oh yeah, I think this would replace some job. These like very sort of nebulous predictions, but they are not putting their neck on the line of a specific future that they believe is going to exist either. They can't. No one can. So it is a little bit sort of when you say emperor's no clothes around AI. I don't think folks in HR or recruiting should be too hard on themselves there. Like that's where a lot of people are. and you probably did the right thing by experimenting and giving a directive. Let's check this shit out. We need to know what's up. We need to develop some intuition on it. I say that's still the main number one thing that people should be doing. And obviously staying on the sidelines about it is the worst play you could possibly have. But yeah.
Yeah. One of my
Kelly,
predictions, though, and sorry to interrupt you, Nolan, we should write this down, but I do think there's going to be a whole job family of great humans that know how to architect and lead like digital workers. There's going to be the whole management track for people to deal with these things, robots that are in responsible ways that work for the company and the humans in that company and the work. I think that's going to be a thing.
I like that prediction. The last thing I'll add here is, Kelly, you said when you get nervous or you get scared, you kind of think to the past. The thing I would add is what Siadhal just said, which is like, actually, I think with AI, you need to get your hands dirty. You need to like go test these things. Siadhal mentioned Cursor. My engineering team was using Cursor, and they're telling me now that 30 to 50% of their code is being produced by Cursor. And so these are the sorts of things that, like, when they come out, if you want to truly be AI native and to be a part of like this future, you need to get your hands on these things. You need to like be doing demos. If you're operating a company with a large sales team, you should be on the phone with 11x and all of their competitors. If you're operating a company with a large engineering team, you should be on the phone with Cursor and this company, Devin. And so we all highly encourage you to get your hands dirty, because AI is not going anywhere. In fact, it's going to become a much larger part of everyone's lives.
Yeah. No, let me ask you something. The Cursor example with engineers doing 30 to 50% of their code, what are they doing with their free time now? Like, how are they using that other free time?
Coding more.
Long lunches or coding more. Okay. So
seriously, like they're more productive.
Yeah. Okay.
Because like that's the thing is, if you were like a one-person engineering team, like maybe you could like not tell your manager about this thing and get away with it. Everybody's using it, right? Siadhal, is that how your engineering team is deploying it too?
Yeah. It's like it would be very, very strange if someone wasn't, and it's like literally become a part of how folks work. But to your question, Kelly, around like what are people doing with their free time? I do think obviously this increased operating leverage that certainly we think AI is going to give us, and in many cases already is, like in that 30 to 50% of the code written by AI, for example. In our case, we did this was survey-based, so based on what the users actually told us. And when we compared a population of recruiters who had adopted AI and a population of recruiters who had not adopted AI, recruiters who have adopted AI are getting through 25% more candidate calls per week. So if you think about that as like a really important unit for a recruiter, like if I speak to more people, I'm going to find the person who's actually going to fill the role quicker. We'll get to kick that project off more quickly. We'll launch that thing. The whole world just moves forward quicker. It's not I don't think the game is ever going to be, and that until maybe, maybe in some countries it will be, but I don't think the game's ever going to be, and therefore we all have this time back because we'd reached this terminal point of this much productivity was all we needed. We're just going to obviously, hopefully march into this really amazing future far quicker.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yep, I agree. All right, everybody, let us know what you think. And also send us recommendations for the things that you want us to ask Siadhal in this monthly corner. So thanks so much for being listeners. Hope you all have a great new year.
Thanks all.
HR Heretics is a podcast from Turpentine, the network behind Econ 102, Moment of Zen, and Turpentine VC. Subscribe, 5 stars, share it on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, all the things.